June 12, 2025. The day dawns with a gentle golden light, casting long shadows across the tarmac at Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport. It's a day that for most begins like any other, filled with the quiet anticipation of journeys, reunions, and the hum of daily life. Ahmedabad wakes to a routine day. The city pulses with energy as commuters fill the streets, unaware that history is about to be rewritten in the skies above them. In homes and offices, people sip their morning chai, check their phones, and prepare for what they believe will be an ordinary Tuesday. Air India Flight 171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, gleams on the tarmac. Its sleek fuselage and distinctive red tail stand as a testament to modern engineering. A marvel of technology, trusted by millions to bridge continents and bring people together. Passengers board, unaware of the tragedy ahead. Some are business travelers, others are families, students, and tourists, each with their own stories, dreams, and destinations. Laughter and conversation fill the cabin as flight attendants greet them with practiced smiles. The jet lifts off smoothly, engines roaring, climbing into the sky. The city shrinks below, and the world outside the windows becomes a patchwork of clouds and sunlight. For the crew, it's another routine departure. For the passengers, the adventure has just begun. For a moment, everything is perfect. The Dreamliner glides effortlessly above the clouds, its advanced systems humming quietly. Passengers settle in, some reading, others gazing out at the endless blue, comforted by the gentle rhythm of flight. Suddenly, the engines go silent. Warning lights flash in the cockpit, and a sense of disbelief sweeps over the flight crew. In the cabin, the change is almost imperceptible at first, a subtle shift in the soundscape, a collective pause in conversation. The aircraft becomes a powerless glider, hanging in the air. The pilots, trained for emergencies, spring into action, running through checklists and searching for answers as the Dreamliner begins to lose altitude. Pilots fight for control, but gravity wins. Their hands move swiftly over the controls, voices calm but urgent as they attempt to restart the engines and guide the plane back to safety. Every second counts, but the odds are stacked against them. The Dreamliner descends in slow motion, crashing near the airport perimeter. The ground rushes up to meet the aircraft, and in those final moments, time seems to stretch, each heartbeat echoing with fear, hope, and disbelief. A fireball erupts, black smoke billowing for miles. The explosion shatters the morning calm, sending shockwaves through the airport and the city beyond. Sirens wail as emergency crews race toward the inferno. The wreckage is unrecognizable, twisted metal where a marvel once stood. Scattered belongings and scorched seats are all that remain of what was, just moments ago, a symbol of hope and progress. First responders rush in, but the devastation is overwhelming. Flames leap from the debris as firefighters battle the blaze, searching desperately for survivors amid the chaos and destruction. The flight lasted only minutes. In less time than it takes to finish a cup of coffee, lives were changed forever. Families waiting at arrivals would never see their loved ones again. This was the first fatal crash of a Dreamliner since its debut. The world's eyes turned to Ahmedabad as headlines flashed across screens and questions began to mount about what went wrong. The aircraft, once a symbol of the future, now lay in ruins. Its promise of safety and innovation was reduced to a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the risks that come with progress. Airlines worldwide had trusted this jet with their fleets. The Dreamliner was the pride of many carriers, a flagship for a new era of aviation. Now, its reputation was in jeopardy. The crash sent shockwaves through the aviation industry. Executives convened emergency meetings, regulators launched investigations, and passengers everywhere questioned the safety of the skies. Even the most advanced technology, it seemed, was not immune to disaster. The Dreamliner, with its cutting-edge systems and fail-safes, had fallen victim to a catastrophic failure that no one had foreseen. The Dreamliner's promise was shattered in an instant. The confidence of an industry and the trust of millions was broken alongside the aircraft's frame. The world watched, stunned, as the nightmare unfolded. From living rooms to airport terminals, people held their breath, united in shock and sorrow as the scale of the tragedy became clear. Questions began to swirl. How could this happen? Was it a mechanical failure, human error, or something more sinister? The search for answers would become a global obsession. The answer would shake the foundations of modern aviation. Investigators from around the world descended on Ahmedabad, determined to uncover the truth and prevent another disaster. The fall of Flight 171 was not just a tragedy, it was a reckoning. It forced the industry to confront uncomfortable questions about safety, oversight, and the limits of technology. The dream had become a nightmare. In the darkness that followed, the world would search for meaning, for answers, and for hope that such a tragedy would never happen again. 242 people were aboard Flight 171, families, business travelers, tourists. Each person carried their own dreams, their own stories, and their own reasons for flying that day. Some were returning home, others were setting out on new adventures, and a few were simply passing through, unaware of the fate that awaited them. Only one survived. The crash site extended beyond the plane. 19 people on the ground lost their lives instantly. The devastation was not limited to those in the sky. Families on the ground, neighbors and bystanders were caught in the disaster's path, their lives forever changed in a single, unimaginable moment. The death toll surpassed 260, making it one of the deadliest air disasters in recent memory. The scale of loss was staggering, leaving a scar on the collective memory of a nation and the world. Grief swept through airport terminals as families awaited news. The uncertainty was unbearable. Hours stretched into eternity as loved ones clung to hope, only to be met with heartbreak. The lone survivor became a fragile symbol of hope. Against all odds, one life was spared, a living testament to both the randomness and resilience of fate. For hundreds of others, futures were erased in seconds. Suitcases left unclaimed, seats left empty, and plans left unfinished, reminders of lives interrupted. Each victim was a story cut short. Behind every name was a family, a circle of friends, and a community left to mourn and remember. The tragedy scarred India and resonated worldwide. News of the disaster spread rapidly, drawing condolences and shock from across the globe. Air India, once proud, was plunged into crisis. The airline faced scrutiny and sorrow, its reputation shaken to the core. The Dreamliner's reputation was shattered. Once hailed as a marvel of modern engineering, it now stood as a symbol of unanswered questions and broken trust. The world demanded answers. How could a state-of-the-art jet simply fall from the sky? Families, officials, and the public all sought the truth, desperate to understand what went wrong. The search for truth had only just begun. Investigators combed through wreckage and data, determined to uncover the cause and ensure such a tragedy would never happen again. Investigators immediately zeroed in on the aircraft's black boxes, knowing these devices held the key to unraveling the mystery behind the sudden disaster. The black boxes, one recording cockpit voices, the other capturing flight data, are designed to survive even the most catastrophic crashes, preserving the final moments of a flight for analysis. As experts carefully extracted and analyzed the data, they hoped to find clues that would explain the Dreamliner's abrupt loss of power just after takeoff. What they discovered was both shocking and perplexing. The data revealed that both engines were starved of fuel within seconds of leaving the runway, a scenario almost unheard of in modern aviation. The recorders showed that the fuel switches, critical controls that regulate the flow of fuel to the engines, had been moved from the run position to cut off, effectively choking the engines and causing them to shut down. With both engines dead, the Dreamliner was transformed from a state-of-the-art jet into a powerless glider, forced to descend rapidly with no thrust to keep it aloft. Such a dual-engine failure, especially during the critical phase of takeoff, is almost unprecedented in commercial aviation. The odds of both engines failing simultaneously are astronomically low. That's why fuel switches are protected by safety covers and require deliberate action to move. Accidental activation is supposed to be nearly impossible. For both switches to be turned off at the same time pointed to either a catastrophic human error, a rare mechanical malfunction, or perhaps something even more troubling. Investigators quickly ruled out structural failure and sabotage, as there was no evidence of tampering or physical damage to the fuel system. Attention soon shifted to the fuel control system itself. Could a hidden flaw or overlooked maintenance issue have caused the switches to move? Investigators considered every possibility. Was it a simple case of pilot error, a mechanical fault, or was there a deeper, more sinister cause lurking beneath the surface? The investigation now had a disturbing lead. The Dreamliner's engines had been deliberately or accidentally shut down. The question that haunted everyone remained. How could such a critical mistake happen, and who or what was responsible? The cockpit voice recorder captured confusion, not malice. The captain's alarmed voice, "Why is the fuel cut off?" The first officer's reply, "I didn't do it." Both pilots were baffled as the engines died. They scrambled to restore power, flipping the switches back to run. One engine tried to restart, but it was too late. The jet was too low, too slow to recover. The data ruled out deliberate action. Instead, it suggested an uncommanded activation, a possible system fault. The pilots were victims of a technological specter, not perpetrators. Could a glitch have overridden human control at the worst possible moment? The investigation shifted. Was there a ghost in the machine? The answer would have global consequences. The world waited for clarity. Investigators uncovered a troubling history. The FAA had warned of fuel switch risks on the Dreamliner as early as 2018. The first notice was advisory, not mandatory, but it highlighted a potential fault. In 2022, the FAA issued a mandatory directive: inspect and modify the engine fire and fuel switches. The risk was clear. Uncommanded fuel shutoff could occur. Airlines were required to act, but had they? The existence of these warnings raised urgent questions for Boeing and Air India. Why was a vulnerable aircraft still flying in 2025? The directives were more than paperwork. They were evidence of a known danger. The investigation now had to connect these warnings to the crash. Was this disaster preventable? Attention turned to Air India's maintenance practices. The airline claimed all mandatory checks were done, but specifics were lacking. Air India admitted it ignored the initial, non-mandatory FAA warning. The throttle control module had been replaced in 2023, but not specifically for the fuel switch issue. Was the new part improved or still flawed? The lack of clarity fueled suspicion. Had a pattern of neglect contributed to the tragedy? The crash was the latest blow to Boeing's battered reputation. The company was still reeling from the 737 MAX disasters and recent quality control failures. Whistleblowers had long warned of shortcuts at the Dreamliner's South Carolina plant. Other Dreamliner incidents, including a mid-flight plunge and maintenance issues, had raised alarms. Boeing's financial losses mounted, and legal troubles deepened. The Air India crash was not an isolated event. It was part of a pattern. Each failure eroded trust in Boeing's engineering and oversight. The Dreamliner, once a symbol of progress, now stood at the center of a global crisis. The world questioned whether Boeing could restore its legacy. The stakes had never been higher. India's AAIB led the investigation, joined by U.S. authorities and Boeing. But Boeing's involvement was met with suspicion, given its recent scandals. The pilots' union demanded transparency, fearing the crew would be scapegoated. Boeing's credibility was in question after years of misleading regulators. Every piece of evidence would be scrutinized. The AAIB faced immense pressure to remain independent. The final report would take months, but its findings would shape the future of aviation safety. The world watched, demanding accountability. The crash sent shockwaves through the industry. Boeing's stock plummeted and airlines rushed to inspect their Dreamliners. Confidence in Boeing was shaken, but the company's dominance endured. Airlines had few alternatives, even as doubts grew. The final investigation report could trigger sweeping changes or further turmoil. The fall of Flight 171 was more than a tragedy. It was a test of the entire aviation system. Its outcome would shape the future of air travel for years to come.